Welcome, responsible sports fans, to the latest Liberty Mutual Insurance Responsible Sports Hangout. My name is Matt Vinson, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with former Olympian Jim Johannson. Jim Johannson is currently USA Hockey's Assistant Executive Director of USA Hockey Operations, and he's live to us from USA Hockey's headquarters in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jim.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here.
We're also joined by our lucky winners of the Hangout with Responsible Sports and Jim Johannson promotion. We'd love to hear who you are, where you're from, and how you're involved in hockey. And we'll start with Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill McCall from Crown Point, Indiana. I'm a level 4 coach. I coach 10 and under right now and had the pleasure of working with Mites as well.
Thanks, Bill. Carl?
I'm Carl. I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi. I'm a player, coach, and the rep.
Grant?
Hi, I'm Grant Seeger. I'm in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Played hockey all my life, played goaltender. Now I did some coaching for my son who's 8 years old, and I just love the game.
Thanks, Grant. Josh?
I'm Josh Kempf from Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm an adult rec league player for the Uniformed Services University.
And last but not least, we have Tara.
Hi, my name is Tara Ripping. I'm originally from Meadows, Wisconsin. I've been skating since I was around 4 years old, and I've always loved hockey, and just recently I've started getting back into it, and currently I'm playing for the U.S. National Women's Hockey Team for Level C Women's Hockey, I guess. It's going to be taking place here in the Bay Area, so I'm really excited about playing on the Lady Sharks.
Appreciate it, Tara. We'll get started with the questions, and we'll start with Bill.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to do this. I read an article where you were quoted, and it's always stuck with me, so I can't believe and never thought that I could ask a follow-up question, but it has to do with locker room pep talks. We've heard the win one for the Gipper speech, and I think everyone on my 10 and under team has heard Brooks via Kurt Russell. His speech is memorized. Getting kids motivated before the game seems, it's relatively easy, but I've seen firsthand some coaches struggle with the post-game talk, especially after a loss. So what recommendations would you have for coaches that want to improve a team while it's fresh in the players' minds, but don't want to add insult to injury after a loss, especially at the youth level?
Yeah, I think a couple things, and I really think it holds true at all the levels, not necessarily the youth levels, but in a lot of what I see and also from experience of growing up, a lot of times I'd like to see the coaches blend in some positives that they saw that might have been from a previous practice and or something that they had discussed with the team heading into the game or during the game and things like that. And then I guess instead of the negatives, focusing on areas where they think that the group as a combined group can improve, and approach it more from words like improve, develop, work on, as opposed to we're not doing this, we're lousy at this. Instead, I guess a lot of times, especially at the younger ages, to kind of use the selection of words of saying this is all development, we're all trying to improve and grow, and blending in some things that were done well. I am a firm believer though in being direct in areas that you do want either improvement and or behavior change, and I think especially at the youth level, as hockey's one part of kids growing up and all those things. If you want behavior to change, I think in kids, and by that I don't mean did he pass the puck well or not and things like that. It's more of this is the things you need to do. I do think it's important that coaches communicate that directly and to not only the individual but to the group as a whole to say these are areas that we collectively need to work on, improve, develop, things like that.
Thanks. Carl, you have a question for Jim?
Yeah, I just did my senior project on concussions in NHL and USA Hockey. What do you think has contributed most to the rise of concussion? That they're being reported more, or players are skating faster, players are, these new sticks, everybody shoots hard?
Yeah,
just a mix of.
I think to a degree, I think it's a combination of what you said. I mean, without a doubt, the game is faster, stronger than it's ever been. At every level that I'm involved with, the kids are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Things are happening on the ice at a much higher pace of play. I do think, secondly, the awareness level is as high as it's ever been, and I think it's going to continue to get higher. And with that, more and more detection has taken place on either documenting concussions and or people recognizing the concussion. So I know that, you know, through our safe sport measures and trying to, like for us, for instance, at the under 12 taking body checking out of the game, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of contact, because everyone go watch a 12-year-old game. There's plenty of contact in the game. But I do think that putting in measures to try to create a safe environment will hopefully help it. Yet with that, the reality is it's a bigger, stronger, faster sport that's still played in the same confined area, and there's going to be collisions. And I know it's certainly a very big concern at the NHL level. And as USA Hockey, it's a big concern, and we put more and more resources into trying to understand it better, first of all, and then to try to take administrative action, you know, i.e. the rules of the game a little bit and the enforcement of the rules to try to get our arms around it as best we can.
Yeah, I definitely think safety is always an issue at every level. Grant, do you have a question for Jim?
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is a really neat event. I work at All True Health System up in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and we recently had Michael Stewart come and do a talk about hockey-related injuries. It also included a lot of in-depth discussion about concussions as well. But I was just curious, what do you see for the future requirements of coaches to learn to teach the kids these ways to avoid injury? I know Dr. Stewart really was mentioning about how to position your body and you know, how not to tuck your head and, you know, things like that that might prevent spinal cord injury. Just curious what you think the future is for the, you know, requirements of coaches there.
Yeah, a couple areas. I think with we're in year 2 of what I think many people are familiar with now is the age-specific modules, and I do think that's going to be very helpful, and we'll continue to evolve and deliver that content and update it as the game evolves and the methods of delivering technology, if you will, to coaches continues to improve. I think the other part, there's a real burden on the coaches, the officials, everybody, the local administrators and all that, in what kind of game do we want? You know, I personally believe that the level of contact and hitting that is allowed in the game at all levels, mostly boarding and charging, is just too high. At some point, hitting players, be it the NHL level or a 12 and under game, at some point there's hits along the boards that are just too hard of a hit. And I think as leaders in the games and in the game and USA Hockey in general, we have to continue to monitor and try to make the game as safe as we can. But you know, hockey is a big, strong, you know, game played at a high speed. But I do think instituting measures to make sure that coaches are well educated, the message is consistent, and that we do have the well-being of the players at all levels at heart is one key for that to help the game in the big picture.
Thanks. Josh, you're up next. Do you have a question for Jim?
Yeah. First, I just wanted to congratulate you on your contribution to that gold medal-winning U.S. World Junior Championship team.
Thanks very much.
And as part of your contribution for that team, what informs your decision to choose players for the national team? What skills or stats or other intangibles are most important to you and to the team?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at U.S. teams in the game today, number one is speed. Without a doubt, guys have to be able to skate, especially when the events are on international size ice surface and there's just more ice to cover. So speed is paramount. For us, the compete level of the players, meaning that's kind of twofold for us. Number one, they have to be very hard to play against. And that can be hard to play against offensively, hard to play against defensively, consistent kind of puck pressure type people, because that's the way we play. We're not a country, we're not a hockey group that sits back and waits for the play to come to us. We're going to try to dictate the play as much as we can. So we need speed. We need guys that compete and are hard to play against. And then as our player pool has gotten so much deeper, we have the liberty now of kind of looking at a little bit more specialty players, meaning if a guy is really, really dynamic on the power play, or if a guy is an excellent face-off and penalty kill guy and things like that, we have enough depth now in competition for spots that we do look for those intangibles in those players and plug them into the core of the team to hopefully build that. I think you saw that not only with our junior team. If you look at our 2010 Olympic team, there was players there that fit specific roles, and we were able to take those types of players because we have so much more depth in the overall quality of player right now.
Great. Sarah, you're up next.
Yeah, the question I have is, I know that we want to continue to have the sport grow more and more. And what do you think is the hardest part for a player to get started? And what can we do to get more people to fall in love with the sport?
I think it's as simple as getting them on the ice the first time. I think it's interesting because I think when kids are their first time to the rink, you have a whole range of emotions going through it. Of some kids are excited and they can't wait to get out there. Maybe they had an older brother or sister that played and they were just waiting for the tap on the shoulder to go. There's others that I don't know if fear is the right word. I don't want to use the word fear, but there's, wow, I've never done this. What's this going to be? But for me, literally getting them on the ice the first time and then having an environment in which, however fast or slow they quote unquote develop, that there's hockey for them to be played. I think a big part of our American development model focuses on that, of kids at all ages, all abilities, of having a program that, if you have 39-year-olds on the ice, you're going to have a whole wide variety of skill level out there. It's important for coaches and people running programs that, the strongest is getting challenged in developing out there. The weakest or the less skilled player is also in a setting that they're getting encouraged and having more and more success at a slow pace. So, getting them out the first time and having an environment in which they feel that they can grow and develop at their pace is important for the continued growth of our game.
Yeah. I know, and it's also probably never too late to start, too. I have a person I know that is in their 50s, and they just started picking up hockey.
Yeah, I think if you look at USA Hockey, I think our largest growing group over the last 5 years has been our adult group. So, I mean, there's more and more people playing it, whether they started early and came back to it or starting at a later age. So it's just been great to have programs at all levels for people that want to play the game.
Along those same lines, Jim, we had a person recently submit an Ask the Experts question, which allows any responsible sports fan to visit our Facebook and submit a question for themselves. And their question was, their 5-year-old had recently expressed interest in getting into hockey, yet the dad himself never knew how to skate, and he was wondering what's the best way to learn how to skate for himself as well as teaching his son at the same time.
Well, it's really for him to go through it in the same process of his son, though it might be a little bit different setting for the dad. I mean, it's funny because that's one of the big things in our, USA Hockey, we have roughly 60,000 coaches. Well, we wouldn't, if coaches all felt that they had to be a polished hockey player to coach, we wouldn't have near the number of great coaches that we've had in the game. So I think it's a similar setting for a 5-year-old or somebody that first wants to get involved is, on your own to a degree and or at open skate sessions, get out there and just get comfortable on the ice first. And then, trust me, if you have a son that's 5 years old or a daughter that's 5 years old and that wants to get involved, the youth associations will help those that want to coach and get involved to help them get comfortable on the ice as well and learn. And, it might start on the boards and slowly work their way to the ice. So I think it's just important to show the interest and get involved and be around it. And trust me, we're a volunteer organization that does a great job of getting people on the ice, and we would do that with a coach as well as a 5-year-old.
Appreciate that. Bill, do you have another question for Jim?
Sure, I'll follow up on his answer to Tara. And let me also say that I think any time with your child outweighs any embarrassment. So we've had plenty of people come out, and it really is just about spending time with the kids. And I encourage anybody to come out. Hockey is a family, so you're not going to get any raised eyebrows at that. But in regards to membership, has the NHL lockout in any way? We've actually noticed more people coming to our rink to watch games at every level simply because there wasn't anything on television. But has that affected membership of people participating in the sport, either positively or negatively? Did you see any changes during that time?
Well, this year it's been really slight. I mean, we do a great job now of measuring our membership, our 8 and under, which the last 4 years has been our highest numbers ever. I think we topped out at about 105,000 last year, which is the highest we've ever had. We were slightly down this year, but I think 2 unique things happened. Number one, the NHL lockout. Historically, if we look at 94, 95, our numbers were down, and it was direct result of the lockout. And so we were a little bit anxious going into this year what that was going to do. And then secondly, the great storm Sandy hit. And at the time that it hit on the East Coast is when a lot of hockey programs were getting started. And, you know, the last thing on a lot of those people's minds at that time was playing hockey. So those 2 things, I think, did show a little bit in our numbers. But I also think that we're doing such a better job at helping local youth associations get more and more kids to the rink that what happened in 94, 95, which was for us a significant drop in 8 and under, and that's really the category we look at closely. I don't think we're going to see near that type of percent drop that we saw from this year's NHL lockout.
I'm happy to say that we locally didn't see that in the Midwest, so it has been okay for us.
Yeah, that's great.
Carl, do you have another question for Jim?
I do. What's your opinion on eventually grandfathering in or making mandatory or visors for players?
Well, I mean, I've seen both sides of it. When I played, I actually the minute I didn't have to wear facial protection, I didn't. So from a player standpoint, I liked having that option. But as I mentioned earlier, the game is faster, stronger, and the speed of the game and all that is so much faster. In the end, I do think obviously at all development levels as much protection and safety as we can have is part of it. As you get to the higher levels of the game, especially the National Hockey League, I personally am a believer in the players have to have that option. I think if you look at it, and I haven't seen the percentages this year, I believe it's well over 70% now in the NHL are wearing facial protection. So as I look at it, I think as that came into the game and more players that had facial protection at every level that they played at, I think it's just going to be a natural number that goes up. Whether or not it's mandated at every level, I'm just not sure. That in international hockey, by rule, it's slowly going to be mandated. The rule is right now, if you were born before 1975, you don't need to wear facial protection. So eventually it's going to age out and everyone's going to be in a visor, and that's really how the IHF has handled it. The NHL kind of did that with helmets, and they grandfathered anybody in. I think McTavish was the last guy to play without a helmet on, and I'll be curious to see, because that'll really be an NHL and an NHLPA issue as to whether that is, you know, quote unquote mandated or just kind of grandfathers with an age requirement.
Thanks. Grant, you're up next.
Yeah, I had a 2-part question, kind of back to the concussion issue. I haven't been through all of the coaching modules on USA Hockey yet, but I was curious when they get to the level of, you know, more contact and checking, what the requirements are for the coaches being able to do a concussion test if they're worried about one of their players. And also the second part is, what do you think of those accelerometers that they can attach to the helmet, like it's in this chin strap, to kind of have an indicator and how to interpret that result?
Yeah, I think what we've done from a coaching standpoint is educate the coaches on concussion protocol, whether that's at the younger ages or as it moves up. And so I guess if you want to call that training, what we've instituted at both our modules and also in the coaching clinics that people go to, especially at the levels 3 and 4, is a little bit more on the general protocol of concussions and how to handle players in those situations. As far as the helmet indicators, I know it's a little bit new technology, and I also know that we get approached by a whole variety of different products, if you will, that are either concussion or concussion-related and or safety-related type products. So I guess for me personally, until I see more and more data that backs up what that is, the safety component of it, I think it's too early to see how that can be a measurement. And to me, I go back to the original thing of some parts of our game have to change. The acceptable levels of hits, to me, has to change before the problem's going to subside. And then secondly, more and more awareness to it. And again, if products can help that, I'm certainly in favor of that, but I just think it's really hard to know right now what can help with the problem.
That's a good point. Josh, do you have another question for Jim?
I do. With the NHL having such a profound influence on the way the game is played in North America and the world, what would you like to see USA Hockey's greatest influence on the NHL be?
More players. I mean, we're certainly excited about being 24% of the league last year and growing from where we were. I don't know if, as far as influence on the game, I think one of the great things with the NHL and their expansion into so many places in the U.S. is that hockey is more and more readily available in more places in the United States. I think I guess my best way of answering that to you a little bit without going into quote unquote the game. Certainly, I'd like to see more promotion of the great parts of the game and not as much of the hard hits or a fight that leads into NHL tonight and see the game. So I do think the promotion of the game can be done more about emphasizing skill and scoring and that, as opposed to 4 huge hits and a fight and then tune in tonight for the game. But I do think also with the great expansion of the NHL into so many markets, that more and more kids have a chance to play, and by that nature the NHL is influencing our game. I think the ultimate mark of that is as we get ready for the NHL draft this year. Seth Jones is probably a guy that's going to be the first or second pick in the draft. We obviously think the first pick in the draft. Well, he grew up in Colorado and Texas, and had this been 40 years ago, he wouldn't have been playing hockey. So I just think that influence, to see an athlete of that caliber all of a sudden be a hockey player, is great. And we've seen huge growth in those areas, and certainly in California, with a direct result being the NHL being in those areas. Great.
Sarah, do you have a question for Jim?
I do. Just San Jose, just being here, the San Jose Sharks, it's really infused a lot of hockey awareness and excitement. So what you just said, yes, for sure, up here in the Bay Area. My question is, you shed a little light on what you do to evaluate a player's talent, and what do you recommend? You mentioned speed was one of the things that you like to look at. What do you recommend for on and off ice training for building up those skills that you evaluate on?
For us, the key, and I'll go to really what we do at NTDP. NTDP, 90% of the training we do is what we call core training. Mm-hmm. And by that, it's focusing on the middle of their body and the upper part of their legs, and training that part of the body. I think we learned and stole from the Europeans, quite honestly, the Russians and the Czechs, and that of how they trained their players, and that they had big, strong legs, and they were really solid in the middle, and they played pretty darn good hockey. And so I do think that the training that people can do now, and the great part is you don't need a weight room. You don't need thousands of dollars of equipment and things like that. A lot of the training we do is just really using our body to train our body, and the natural resistance that you can do in things like push-ups and plyometric things, or in sprints and all those things, and using, obviously we do have a weight program and things like that, but we really are training our bodies and using our bodies to train the bodies, and it's that core that we're training. And I think you look at some of the players that we're proud of. You look at a Patrick Kane, nobody would call him a big strong guy, but go watch a hockey game. He's a big strong guy, and it's hard to knock him down. It's hard to get him off the puck and things like that, and it's because his center section is very, very strong. And I think, excuse me, all the players need to train that, coupled with having from hockey, the skating, shooting, passing, the fundamentals are obviously key.
Great.
We have a responsible sports hockey mom send us a question for you, Jim, and she wrote, my son never seems to tire from his sport, which is ice hockey. He and his teammates play all year round. They play street hockey, they play at home, they play at the rink. I'm worried that he may get burnt out. Are there any telltale signs? And if so, what should I do?
For me, if all of a sudden there's the moodiness or a lack of enthusiasm clearly shows up, then something has probably changed. And I do think trying to balance their life, if you will, meaning that there's other things that are probably as important, be it school activities or other activities with friends or with their brothers and sisters that are equally as important as a hockey practice one day. I'm guarded in saying some of that because part of this game is passion and enthusiasm for the game and the quote-unquote rink rats and the love of the game. And, I guess I encourage that as much as I can. But, again, I say that at the time when a lot of, kids my age went through it, the checks and balances were in place. I mean, it wasn't a year-round sport and things like that. And so that's come into our game a little bit. But I do think families in general have to balance their kids' activities, and hockey's one part of that.
As kind of a follow-up to that question, have you seen any complementary sport that they maybe complements hockey very well during the off-season?
Well, the pro guys will tell you golf, but I mean, you know what? Anything that they're active in. There's so many great sports now, and I think activities that can be beneficial for kids. I mean, so to me, I can't really single out one. I mean, I know there's been a pretty large growth of lacrosse in the country. And when I grew up, didn't even know what lacrosse was. And I grew up in Minnesota, and now lacrosse is in Minnesota and things like that. So, again, I think it's about just being active and being in good settings and having, good exchange and interaction with their friends and neighbors and things like that.
Terrific. Bill, do you have another question?
Well, I'll just touch on the answer you gave Grant in regards to the coaching education program. Between that and the online coaching modules, all the information you give coaches on the nutrition, everything else, it really has been I want to thank you and also commend USA Hockey for providing that. I think it's much needed and appreciated. But for those that are interested in giving back to USA Hockey, especially, I know how much I've received, want to give back. For those interested in volunteering, what would be a good step in finding out how to do so?
Well, through the local leadership. I mean, the strength of USA Hockey is our volunteer membership, and so to me, again, headed to the rinks and just asking around to the local association people of, whether or not people had background in it or just want to give back and things like that is number one, letting them know that you want to get involved, and then secondly, being involved at any level in which they need the most help. I think that's a key component as well of everyone wants to be involved either at something convenient for them and or maybe just where their son or daughter's playing. And the reality is we need a lot of people to help at all the levels. And so I think reaching out, number one, to show that you're interested and can help them out with it. And then secondly, identifying areas in which you think your strengths are, if you will, to help those organizations. And whether it's a larger or small association, doesn't matter. I think all of them are always looking for people that are really willing to help and give. And as I mentioned earlier, we do more and more with a lot of kids on the ice, and with that comes a wide variety of skill levels on the ice. And hey, some kids just need more attention and more hands-on time to learn the simple things of whether it be skating or just handling a puck, while some other kids are flying around and just naturally developing by competing with each other.
Well, the online module, all the coaching programs, you could tell USA Hockey really has put a lot of effort into it, and I see it really do pay off. So thanks
Thanks
again.
very much. We're real proud of it.
Carl, do you have another question here for Jim?
I do. With the NHL just coming back from lockout, what do you think about sending the players to Russia for the Olympics?
We're excited about it. I mean, it's not a done deal yet, but we do feel strongly that the players do want to be there. I think it's showcased itself so well, especially in Vancouver, what people saw, and certainly in Torino and Salt Lake City when the U.S. hosted in 2002. So, I mean, for us, the Olympics has become a best on best, and for USA Hockey, we want to take our best to the Olympic Games. The days of I don't know if pureness or amateurism, if you will, of the Olympics are gone in every sport. And so for us, we do think it is a best-on-best competition. We are in very close communication right now with the National Hockey League, with the International Ice Hockey Federation, and the NHL Players Association. And in the end, I really do feel that all of the parties are going to get everything worked out so that come next February in Sochi, you'll see best-on-best again in great Olympic hockey.
Thanks. Grant, do you have another question here for Jim?
Yeah, it's a little different topic, but I was just curious what you thought, or what USA's Hockey's comments are about educating coaches on a little leniency towards other parts of a child's life as they're going through the models of development, like for fine arts, playing an instrument, when it conflicts with practice, and I know the coaches get a little more serious as you get going, and ways to allow them to, miss a game or this and that without being punished later on.
Yeah.
Just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, to me, in most of the cases, it's usually all about communication, and in many cases, I think, I guess ultimately the responsibility a little bit with the families of if their kids do have other interests and things like that, and just openly communicating that with the coaches or the team manager and those things as they start the season and get ready to go. Certainly from USA Hockey's perspective, we want an environment in which kids are excited and want to be at the rink, yet as we mentioned earlier, have other activities as well. And we certainly think with how long a hockey season can be that those things can be balanced out in a measured way. It's not to say that we don't have experiences where families have had a bad experience of, either a coach being very hard line in the approach with that, and in some cases, that drives people away from our sport. So the bottom line, we don't want to drive people away from our sport. We do want well-rounded, kids in all aspects of life, and certainly hockey being one part of it. So for me, I think the communication as much upfront and ahead of time as can be done, in 95% of the cases can alleviate those concerns. It's just like there's so many things that you're trying for your kids to experience, and we hope hockey's a good experience in it, and certainly wouldn't want to penalize other parts of pursuits that they have in life just because of a hockey game or a practice.
Thanks. Josh, you're up next.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to say I really appreciate your comments on decreasing the acceptable level of hitting and making sure that great goals and saves and teamwork take precedence over fighting or potentially predatory hits. I find that a lot of times those kind of sentiments, I think sometimes are kind of shouted down by very passionate fans who are afraid of the game changing too much. So I was just wondering, how do you personally advocate these kind of sentiments when there's so much pushback from a lot of fans who are afraid that the spirit or the thrill of hockey might go away if we change it too much?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because at the highest levels that I'm involved with our programs, the World Junior Championships, for instance, and we had ups and downs in that tournament as I'll relate to either the discipline or the decisions of our team, if you will, within it. So in the end, whether I'm speaking for USA Hockey and or just for one of our teams and things like that, we want to play the right way. I mean, we want to play hard. We want to play within the rules of the game, but we want to be a team that that hockey fans and certainly USA Hockey fans are proud of the way our team plays, meaning that they do play discipline, they do compete, they're hard to play against. The bigger picture things, as you mentioned, of the fighting, the unnecessary hits in the game and things like that, that's a hockey issue as a whole. I do feel in my role some responsibility to make sure that what we can control, be our national teams at all the levels, we want them to play the right way. And again, if they're not, we need to change behavior, and sometimes that's as a group, and many times that's as individuals. So, I guess I attack it in the way that I can with the teams that I'm involved with. I do think that the nature of our game, and when I say that, I mean worldwide and collectively, we all have to be good caretakers of the game and make sure that it is a game that, whether it's the first time the kid steps on the ice or, 5 years into it and 14 years old and all of a sudden, quote unquote, checking is allowed right now, that the game is in an environment and a setting that kids can both develop, grow, nurture, compete, and also feel, safe to play the game. And again, I think that going back to USA Hockey and things like our national teams, we want our teams to play the way we want them to play. We want them to play, very hard to play against, but also the kind of hockey that hockey fans enjoy.
Thank you.
Great. Sarah, do you have another question for Jim?
I do. My next question is a little bit more personal to you. Hockey has meant a lot more to me beyond just the sport. It's really given me a lot, and one of the aspects is giving me a lot of confidence in life. I just want to know what importance did hockey play in building your own character, and what do you hope it builds for other people?
I'd say it was integral in where I've gotten to and how I got there. I mean, I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, in a community with a community rink that was built in a large part by the people in Rochester. So I think that the framework that hockey gave me was, number one, a great appreciation of the game and enjoyment that I got in the game. But if I go back and look back at it now, the people and the coaches that I was surrounded with and the lessons that they taught you, and not only at the hockey rink, but this is how you treat your teacher, this is how you treat your brother, your sister, the neighbor, and all that, in all honesty, all that came from hockey. And I think that's one of the great things in our sport, and I think that's one of the things that we need to continue to emphasize at all levels with it. And I think in the end, so much of what I've done is consumed with hockey, but when I really step away from it, more and more of the friendships and camaraderie and all that is just things that I have in common with people, and one of those things that is in common is hockey. But it's not necessarily the only thing. So again, I think from being young to playing professionally and working my way through it now as an administrator professionally, I want to have that same type influence on the players that I'm surrounded with, whether it be a 5-year-old to a kid on our under 20 team. And I think that I was fortunate with the people that I grew up around that did that for me and the programs I was around. And I certainly hope that that's something I can do in the role that I have here.
Great.
I think hockey's meant a lot to all of us, so I'd like to pose that question to all of us here. So, Bill, would you like to share with us what hockey has meant to you?
Well, sort of expound on the same thought is I'm proud of the fact that my 9-year-old son has learned that if you fall down, and we all fall down, the most important thing is to get back up. And he really learned that literally from hockey, but also just in life. It's a life lesson. So what I take from it personally is that we're teaching, personally my son, but the next generation, that it is okay to fail. It's what you do with it afterwards, and it's what comes from sports in general. But hockey's a great sport to learn it in.
What about you, Carl? What has hockey brought to you in your life experience?
Like other people said, it's brought a lot of confidence. It kind of teaches you to never give up and just keep trying no matter what happens. Kind of play through the pain sometimes. Things happen, you just got to keep going and not give up.
Grant?
Yeah, it's been another integral part of my life too, is just that other aspect of kind of the aggressiveness and just exercise and all those kind of things. But I grew up in Northwest Minnesota, and it was great in high school, and I was, played goalie, you get announced, you're out there in the whole, you get all that support, from family and friends, and the crowd goes wild, and you're out there having a great time, and I got to play at St. John's University under John Harrington for a little bit, which was really a cool experience. But other than that, it's just I made a lot of friendships along the way. It's been really neat. After college, I get to play with the medical school team, and then played with some other buddies during residency, and just made a lot of great, good relationships with guys that have some things in common. So it's a great part of my life. Still play weekly.
How about you, Josh? What does hockey mean to you?
I think it's been a great opportunity to bond with my family, who big hockey fans themselves, and whether it's going to a game or watching it on TV or skating at the rink or in the backyard, it's been a tremendous opportunity throughout life to bond with family and friends.
And Terry, you shared a little bit. Did you care to expand a little bit on what else hockey means to you?
It's just, the excitement, just building confidence in myself. I just still love going to a rink by myself and just skating on the ice too, and just stick handling and having those quiet moments. It just means a lot to me, the sport.
It puts you in the zone.
Yeah.
The next question we have for you, Jim, comes from a responsible sportsman named Dave, and it's a little personal. He just wants to know, what was the most challenging task you faced in your role with the World Juniors team?
Getting to UFA Russia, probably. For me, in all honesty, what I try to do is have things organized and things like that for the coaches and the players, and that all they need to focus on is what they're there for. And again, I've learned through experience on how to do those things, and we do run a what I think is a pretty smooth operation in getting our players prepared and having everything that the coaches need, from scouting reports and information on the opponent and things like that, information on our players. The bottom line is I just try to surround myself with the best people that I can, and I learn from them and they learn from me, and it truly is a combined effort. And if people want to go spend 15 days in UFA Russia, you will learn that you got to stick together and be a combined group there, and I think that's what people saw on our team. I mean, you saw 2 tough 1-goal losses, but you also saw a group that didn't lose confidence, and a group that grew into the championship there. So for me, it's really about surrounding myself with all the best people that I can, and then trying to provide them everything that they need, and then in all honesty, kind of get out of the way and let them do their job, and then provide the feedback from experience that I have with not only myself, but in the case of the World Juniors, Tim Taylor, who's kind of my right-hand man with the World Junior team.
Sure. So we have time for one more round of questions. And Bill, do you have another question for Jim?
Well, not really a question. I just really want to thank you for taking this time to meet with us and just share thoughts. It's very educational for me. I'm going to take a lot from it and share it with my coaching staff and the kids on the team. Thank you for Responsible Sports as well, just for setting this up. What a great opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I mean, you epitomize why USA Hockey works. An involvement in the game, a son, as you mentioned, a 9-year-old son playing the game, and we hope that you guys together have a long career on the ice together and enjoying the game.
Thank you.
Carl, you have another question for Jim?
I do. I'm down here in Mississippi. It's not a real big hockey market, but what's USA Hockey trying to do to expand its kind of brand to all these other hockey places, try to put hockey in other places?
I think the biggest thing we're trying to do is work with all the facilities and help creating programs that more and more kids can get on the ice. I mean, we're the one thing about hockey that is unique is that you need ice. I mean, you need facilities, and we need them to be doing well. So we've got a few alliances with facilities, but I think the biggest thing is trying to help them have both quality coaching and people involved, but help them with the structure of the program, that at whatever level the boy or girl is, that there's a program for them to get on the ice and see how much they can grow, enjoy, and develop in the game.
Right.
Grant, do you have another question for Jim?
Yeah, just on a personal note, I was just curious what your greatest personal hockey moment was in your life.
Oh boy, good question. I guess for me, really, I was fortunate enough to play on 2 Olympic teams, and people always ask like, what, boy, what's your greatest memory and things like that. For me, it probably truly is the guys I got to play with, and especially highlighted on those 2 Olympic teams, to be in practice every day with Brian Leach, to be shooting on Mike Richter, to be, watching a young Keith Tkachuk in 1992 as a young college guy growing into, what we all knew was going to be a great NHL player. So I look at it more that way, of the guys that I got to skate and play with every day, as opposed to this certain game or that certain game. It was really growing and developing and getting my own self-assessment of myself as a player and as a teammate while doing it with, guys that had fantastic careers, and really made it easy and sometimes disappointing to measure yourself. But, I mean, it made it great to measure yourself every day by being in that environment.
Josh, another question?
Yeah, if you're putting together the all-time American hockey team, aside from yourself, who's on the top of that list?
Yeah, boy. It's a great question. I'm going to offend too many guys now, but no, I do think whenever we do that, I do think you have to look at it generationally a little bit. I'm not trying to dodge a question or anything like that, but there's so many pioneers of the game, the 60 team, the John Mayasich and some of those guys were, and this was before the NHL really was a livelihood. And so I look at the Jack McCartan, the John Mayasich, the Corain and the Cleary brothers from the 60s group of there, and what the footprint they did. I think you look at the 80 Olympic team and how they put USA Hockey on the map, and I think you look at the 96 World Cup team and how they put a huge footprint on USA Canada. I mean, and I'm not dodging the question, trust me here, but in circling back, I think you have to look at all those generations and say, wow, look at all the contributions that these guys made as American players and the different challenges that they all faced within it. I think to name 6 guys is, to a degree, for me, is a little bit of disservice for what all of those generations did for our game. And boy, it'd be really hard to do now with so many great players that are coming up the ranks right now, and how do you measure them to the guys that really open the door for them to do that? So, I guess I'll probably leave this without really answering the question, other to say I know I don't belong on the team. So, being a Badger, I'll put Chris Chelios on there, so that'll make it easier. So, yeah. Cover my boy Chelly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have another question for Jim?
Yeah, my last question is, in 10, 20 years, what is your biggest hope for the future of USA Hockey? What do you think that? What are you hoping for?
I guess to continue on all the strengths that are happening right now, that our numbers continue to grow, that facilities continue to grow, that it becomes a more and more 50-state game, and we're the numbers keep improving all across those areas, and that in the end that parents, both when they get started but also when they've gone through the whole cycle, that they say, you know what, hockey was a great experience for my son and my daughter, and when they get to, circling back to people in here, when they get back to Bill now, that Bill's involved with his son in the game. So in 10, 20 years, I hope that same cycle is going. But I hope by, nature of evolution or whatever you want to call it, that more and more are playing, but that we're able to best to coach and service and have settings for them at all of those levels to enjoy the game.
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for much more than that. Before we go, we want to let Jim, if you have any final words or thoughts or advice for our responsible sports parents and coaches out there.
Well, this has been a real pleasure. I mean, I think the bottom line is it is a game. It's something that can be such a rewarding experience at a wide variety of levels, and that in the end, treat the game and the sport with the respect that it deserves, but also put it into perspective on where it is in the big picture of things. I think there's so many great things that can come out of involvement from parents, players, managers, and everybody involved in it, that I think it can be such a great experience for them that can carry into other parts of their life. And it's great to have this involvement of Liberty Mutual and the responsible sports people of really what our game's all about, is a good, a great part of people's life and growth and development and recreation, to keep everyone as fit and healthy as they can, and hopefully they're doing it in a great setting playing hockey.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. We here at Liberty Mutual Insurance Responsible Sports wanted to thank you, our fans, for watching live on YouTube. We also wanted to thank, of course, our winners here selected randomly to enter. And we also wanted to give a special thanks to Jim. We also want to thank USA Hockey. And if you want to learn more about USA Hockey, just visit usahockey.com. Also, be sure to visit responsiblesports.com to find exclusive videos and podcasts and interviews from some of the sports industry's biggest names, giving all of their thoughts and advice on youth sports, parents, and coaching. Until next time, have a good night.
Thank you.